Bringing on a show like Young Royals isn't a piece of cake because it centres around royalty and LGBTQ+, so the rules the cast must follow are pretty tough. No coming out story. In the Young Royals, the attraction and love happened without the added drama of when or if to come out to any identity or sexuality. Although the coming out journey is usually the most important aspect of most LGBTQ+ shows, it helps many young adults in the same situation come out. This rule ensured Young Royals cast skip all of that. And this rule was important because coming out takes most of every show's focus and makes the real-life experience less talked about and not taken seriously. It's not like coming out was still not necessary for Young Royals, but it wasn't that important. Simon had understanding parents who are okay with him being gay, but it's much more complicated for Wilhelm, who's the crown prince and must produce heirs to take over when the time is right. But here's where the rule plays out. Wilhelm became attracted to Simon and didn't have to choose between being gay or bi before understanding his feelings for him. And yes, there were some denials from him when he pointed out he wasn't like that, but he knew that you don't have to be like anything or come out as anything to love someone. The energy between Simon and Wilhelm is so new that they don't need to come out to enjoy it. They're gay for each other and they just made love happen. And the cast following this rule is very beneficial to the viewers because it shows them to let love rule and not wait to come out first before agreeing that they feel something towards someone. Sharing screen time. This rule focuses more on the screenwriting team than the cast, but the cast also has to play along for everything to be perfect. In many shows that have to do with romance between two people these days, there's a struggle for balance between which party gets the most screen time, and in Young Royals' case, many viewers would have been expecting more focus on Wilhelm because he's the crown prince, but that didn't happen. In the show, fans can see Simon's life outside of school too, which makes for a better understanding of his character, as it feels like the viewers know him personally. And to make this rule even better, there's also the same privilege for the supporting cast, like August, Felice, and Sarah. Fans can see how August struggles with his financial mess and reputation as a prefect, and can relate with him even though he's not their favourite. Sarah, too, has her secrets and wants to be accepted by her friends, and most teenagers in high school also share the same experience. The viewers can also understand the high standards that are expected of Felice by her parents, and this is real to many teenagers all over the world. So having an almost equal shared screen time helps the viewers to understand and experience Young Royals' characters independently. And this rule helps fans feel closer to the show's cast. Improvising intimate attractions. The intimacy scenes that make most high school teenage shows fun are now something that's become irritating to viewers. Of course, these things happen, but some shows don't give many stories about how the attraction started before making teenagers jump into bed and get ready for anything. But this rule sets Young Royals apart. Every lover of the show can feel the tension between Wilhelm and Simon, so it's obvious that the chemistry is real. And instead of taking the attraction in and outside the bedroom or start kissing randomly in front of parents, the cast was made to improvise with meaningful moments most teenagers and everyone who's passed through that stage can relate with. How they hide to kiss in the forest, making sure none of their schoolmates sees them, is so emotionally attractive. Also, the occasional glances between them are so real and more important than spending many hours in the bedroom together, and the cast were able to bring these little pieces of stuff that matter to the screen. Careful royalty approach. Since Young Royals is a show centered around many things the royal blood must do and not do, the cast needed to touch on the topic carefully to avoid misrepresentation. With how the actor Edwin Riding portraying Wilhelm and his frustrations on being the crown prince, viewers can tell he did his assignment on the show and followed the rules. The teenage years are usually the most difficult years before adulthood, before many get in denial and hate their immediate family for putting them under so much pressure. And like many other teenagers, Wilhelm can show the fans that royalty doesn't exclude him from experiencing his teenage troubles. Yes, he tries to act like an adult sometimes and do what's required of him as a crown prince, but that doesn't change the fact that Wilhelm is young, and the things that matter to him are not crown related but his love for Simon. Wilhelm feels unhappy that he's from royalty, like in one scene when he tells the Queen that he didn't choose the royal life, and his mother had to remind him that it's a privilege many would be happy to get. So this rule comes off as very important, as it helps the cast to show the viewers that royalty isn't always perfect like in other shows where they act like all is well, and bringing the awkwardness that isn't always out in the open was well done by the actor Edwin. They must look like teens. What separates a show like Young Royals from other shows is that the cast comprises teens, or at least adults that look like teens. It's almost like the first time fans would get to enjoy not having overgrown adults portraying teenage roles. And that's one rule the cast had to follow. They're not looking too mature for actual teens to relate with. All the cast on the Young Royals series looks like what every teenager should look like. The face of the Crown Prince Wilhelm isn't perfect and has pimples all over it, and that's the age many teenagers in real life will get to deal with puberty and experiencing big changes in their bodies. And that's a great representation of teens. Also, looking at the cast who work out in the show, like August, played by Monty Gardinger, he still had a long straight body, that of a teen, without unnecessary six-packs for someone in his character's age. And even though the actor who portrays Simon, Omar Rudberg, is 23, he's still very close to the age he portrayed in the show and still remembers what it feels like to be a teenager. And that's unlike many shows with adults 10 years or more older than their characters. So this rule is very strict for the cast, as it's important to be realistic and not show standards that teenagers don't have business with. Focus on authenticity. Young Royals is popular for one very important thing, and that's because it's relatable to the real teenagers the show is meant to portray. And this rule, which appears easy, was only possible for the cast because instead of looking into the media that have misinterpreted young romance for so long, they looked into their environment for clues instead. Like the actor Omar said, they get their scripts and start figuring out how their characters would respond, so they don't overdo it by putting their own words into the character's mouth. So they follow what a royal teenager and commoner in love would have done, making the rule much more demanding. Young Royals showed viewers the authentic storytelling they've been missing for so long. One of these authentic scenes is where Simon complains about Wilhelm's morning breath their first time together. And that is just so real. It shows the actors paid attention to this rule. Collaborating with writers. Many filming locations don't require much, as the actor just comes to set, does their lines, and the next minute they're gone again. And some enjoy catching up with their colleagues behind the scenes, but that's all they have to do until the filming is over. But the Young Royals cast is different because this rule expects them to go beyond acting and get to work with the writers to develop the story. This joint effort between the cast and the writers is obvious in how the cast translates each role on the screen. It makes them feel like the narrative is their own because they help develop the show, so they know how it's meant to go. The rule is also helpful in cases where the cast had to improvise their lines. The Young Royals actors improvised in almost every episode, and this wouldn't have been achievable if they weren't working alongside the writers, portraying real neurodivergent roles. Young Royals is one of the shows that takes diagnosed characters seriously and still makes them live normal lives, because in real life, even after a diagnosis, people still have to show up to work and school and continue living. So this rule sets Young Royals apart from other shows that make the characters about the diagnosis. The show didn't shy away from making the best of neurodivergent representation on the screen. Where Sarah mentioned she was living with Asperger's and ADHD, the show didn't continue by making that the only thing the viewers have to know about her. Many chances came to know Sarah beyond what she was diagnosed with. In one scene, Felice even said that Sarah was the most real she's ever seen, even though she was living with conditions that could have altered her life. So this rule made sure neurodivergent characters were represented well in Young Royals without demonizing what they are as a person. And this is huge for viewers with the same conditions, as it's a big effort put into making that happen. Do you think the cast of Young Royals did well following these rules? Share your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for watching.